His Excellency Tun Dato Seri Utama Ahmad Fuzi Abdul Razak, Governor of Penang. Yang berbahagia Dato Seri Muhammad Iqbal Rotha, Chairman of the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur. Excellencies, Tan Sri Dato, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, on behalf of the organizers, the KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific, the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur, and China Daily Asia Pacific, extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this 2022 Asia Economic and Entrepreneurship Summit. It is our great honor and pleasure to have with us here our guest of honor, His Excellency Tun Dato Seri Utama Ahmad Fuzi, and to thank him for taking time off his very busy schedule to be present with us this morning to grace today's event. We are also delighted to welcome here our distinguished speakers who are able to be with us to share with us their wealth of knowledge and experience on the challenges facing Asia going forward. If I may, I would like to perhaps start by saying that Asia faces three disruptions. The first disruption was digital disruption that has impacted us over the last few years, the transformation to a digital economy and the vast impact of digital technology. The second disruption that Asia faces is the pandemic disruption that countries over the last 2 years have to grapple with the global pandemic and with the challenge of building back better, recovering our economy, and saving lives. The third disruption that Asia and the rest of the world will continue to face is to manage climate risks and overcoming climate change. At the same time, we believe that Asia also faces three key challenges, and we call these the three C's. The first C being capital, because we are concerned that there is a reduction in investment flows after the pandemic, and the need to be able to bring in new capital investments in the new economy in Asia, and the challenge of attracting new investments. The second C that we all face is the cost of living crisis that impacts not only on Malaysia or Asia, but globally as well, with rising inflation affecting all Asian countries and even globally. The third C is corruption, because we've seen in many Asian countries how corruption has affected economic growth and the need to enhance integrity systems and ethical leadership. And here we would like to propose setting up perhaps an Asia Integrity Network to be able to promote greater ethical leadership. At the same time, I think we also face three key issues facing Asia, and that perhaps can be summed up in the acronym DIE, D-I-E. I'm not saying we're going to die, but we need to tackle these three key issues: diversity, inclusion, empowerment. We also know that going forward in the next few months, Asia, like the rest of the world, will continue to face the food and fuel crisis arising from the crisis in Europe and the invasion of Ukraine. Sustainability and sustainable development will also need to be placed in a greater priority among countries and companies in Asia. I would like to perhaps suggest that at today's summit and in future deliberations on the future of Asia, we also dwell on what I call the 5 E's: economic growth, education, employment, energy, and environment, because these are the 5 E's that will determine and affect the future of Asia. These are global concerns and challenges, but these need local action. And that's where we hope the summit today can help crystallize some solutions and some local actions that we can collectively take in partnership between government, business, and civil society. Before I end, I'm pleased to also announce that today's summit will confer on His Excellency, the Governor of Penang, the Distinguished Asia Leader Lifetime Achievement Award. We are indeed very honored and gratified that His Excellency has kindly consented to receive this award and is a most apt recipient for this year. His Excellency Tun Fuzi is one of Malaysia's most distinguished diplomats, serving as an ambassador, as Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in which capacity he led the organization of the OIC and Non-Aligned Movement NAM summits in Malaysia. He went on to serve with distinction as Secretary General of the World Islamic Economic Forum Foundations. And since last year, he has distinguished himself as the Governor of Penang. Heartiest congratulations to the Governor on this award, and we are gratified that you are accepting this morning. Let me end by again thanking all of our distinguished speakers, our sponsors, for your support of today's event, and congratulations also to the other recipients of the Business Award that will be conferred later as well. Sekian, terima kasih.
Thank you, Dato Seri, for your points on the disruptions and challenges that we face in the region, as well as giving us some suggestions of how we can overcome these issues. Next, we have a welcome speech from Yang Berbahagia Dato Seri Muhammad Iqbal Router, Chairman of the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur. Dato Seri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, salam bahagia dan selamat sejahtera. A very good morning to all of you, distinguished guests and participants, and also the award winners for this morning. On behalf of the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur, I'm very, very privileged to be given these few minutes to say a few words on this important and meaningful Asia Economic and Entrepreneurship Summit. Tan Sri Michael has already given the introduction and welcoming address. Sometimes in between the welcoming address of the lead organizer and the keynote address, our guest of honor, I'm sandwiched in between. Sometimes in the sandwich, the middle part is the most succulent one, but I don't want to take that particular importance, because if I repeat what Tan Sri Michael has said, and I go on to add more points than the guest of honor and his keynote address, I may steal something from him. So I want to avoid. Thank you very much. Today we are looking at the Great Reset after whatever that has happened right across the globe without any exception. They say that Asia is the 21st century, and we are in this summit looking at the mega trends and opportunities. And to give us this keynote address as what Tun Sri Michael has already said. His Excellency Tun Dato Seri Utama Ahmad Fuzi Abdul Razak is here with us, and we want to give him a round of applause to welcome him for this great honor that he's giving to us. Now, sometimes when you go on to occupy a ceremonial position like that of the Governor of Pulau Penang, Pulau Mutiara, the Pearl of the Orient, it's very, very significant to have somebody in the person of Tun Ahmad Fuzi, because as Tun Sri Michael said, his distinguished career diplomat, speaks volumes about what he has done for the country, not only for the country Malaysia, but for the region, ASEAN, and the greater Asian context, and a respectable figure in the world arena where he occupied a very important beat, whether it is in the Islamic OIC countries or the rest of the world. You have done an excellent service to the country and to yourself, and of course that brings us to the apex of being the Governor of Penang, and I'm proud to say I'm one of those chips from the Pulau Penang. Thank you very much, Tun. Now, the perspectives and the visions I'm not going to address because some of the keynote speakers are going to talk about this. But the COVID gave us an experience that is unprecedented over the history of the humanity, the COVID. I think there have been earlier pandemics and epidemics and so on, but the COVID brought us a completely different perspective, and thank God, we say Shukr Alhamdulillah for the Muslims and to the other religious people, that we are not really out of the woods, but we are to some extent enjoying the normalcy. Now, in the reset for Asia, what are we going to face? Can we take this as a return to normalcy? Or we have to be a bit more careful and see what is going to be. And this is where the economic and entrepreneurship interaction in this summit is going to give us new perspectives. And I hope some of the panel members and the speakers will bring. Now, when I went to the university, I was told that economics is a dismal science. But now it looks like economics is not a dismal science. It is a distorted science. Now, on the one side, you see some countries are saying inflation is on the throes, and therefore we must increase the interest rate in order to control the inflation. Whereas some others are saying, hey, no. This is a very disrupted environment, like what Tun Sri Michael said. Under this disrupted environment, we must have quantitative easing or ability of the government to provide assistance, particularly to the entrepreneurs, so that we can revive the economy. So there is no definitive, prescriptive, scientific approach to human disasters or human problems. Now, everybody can talk about the closing of the borders during the pandemic. Now, slowly we are opening up. But now the danger for Asia and the rest of the world, we are being pushed to become part of this bloc or that bloc. If we don't take that kind of a position and go back to our original formulation, I think Tun Ahmad Fuzi knows that when Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, propagated this concept of ZOPAN, Zone of Peace and neutrality. It looks like you cannot stand alone in this world. You must belong to this or to that, and if you don't do it, you will be crushed. And I hope we will not be pushed into that kind of a position. Once again, I want to thank Tan Sri Michael for giving the ECKL, the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur, giving us this opportunity to cooperate with you in this very important summit. And I would like to congratulate all the award winners, and more importantly, to Tun for receiving this Lifetime Achievement Award. And with that, thank you very much for giving me your patient listening, and thank you.
Thank you, Dato Seri, for that reminder of the volatile post-pandemic times we live in and giving us your suggestions of what more needs to be done to revive the economy. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now it gives me pleasure to announce the presentation of the opening keynote address by none other than the Governor of Penang himself, Tuan Yantu Utama, Tun Dato Seri Utama Ahmad Fuzi bin Haji Abdul Razak, who will now be talking about the challenges facing Asia in the post-pandemic new normal.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Tan Sri Michael Yeo, President, KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific. Dato Seri Muhammad Iqbal Router, Chairman Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur. My good friend Tan Sri Rastam over there. Datuk Wasiha, Executive Vice Chairman of KSI. Excellencies, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning and salam sejahtera. It gives me great pleasure to be here today for this Asia Economic and Entrepreneurship Summit 2022. I would like to thank the organizer, the main organizer, KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific, and the co-organizers for inviting me to speak at this summit. The summit's theme of the Great Reset, Asia Megatrends and Opportunities Post-COVID, is most timely and important as we enter a post-pandemic era. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at an important juncture as we chart the path forward, where we need to reflect and ask some key questions. What are the megatrends affecting Asia? How has the pandemic affected the economies in Asia? How different will life be for governments, businesses, and the people in the next 5 years as we transition into a post-pandemic era? To what extent can we go back to business as usual or pre-pandemic times? What are the opportunities for changes in these fluid times? In other words, how will and should a reset look like? And for Malaysia in particular, do we have the right leadership to be future ready to meet the challenges ahead? I will not pretend to have the answers to all these difficult yet important questions. I believe this summit will be a good platform for the panels to explore them in depth and to provide ideas and recommendations for policymakers and businesses alike. We live in a multi-stakeholder world where no one organization or entity, be it government or corporation, has all the answers or can solve the world's most pressing problems like climate change, economic inequality, and social polarization. Now, I have been asked to speak on the challenges facing Asia in the post-pandemic new normal, leadership, governance, and security. In exploring the challenges faced in the region, I would like to share some thoughts on the megatrends in Asia. Now, megatrends are transformative forces that have a deep and profound impact on everyone. Megatrends do not happen overnight, but once set in motion, they will fundamentally reshape the way we live, work, learn, and play. We can think of these megatrends as shifts. I believe there are three major shifts happening in Asia that will have a bearing on our economies and societies. The first major shift is the rapid acceleration of technology in everyday use. In only the span of a few years, emerging ABDC technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, data and cloud computing are no longer abstract concepts. Founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Professor Klaus Schwab, mentioned that these ABDC technologies will drive the convergence of the physical, digital, and biological worlds in his book on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, published in 2016. Now, 2016 was not a long time ago, but we are already seeing the effects now. The question on our minds is, will machines take over our job, and to what extent? It depends really on your job. Jobs that have more routine tasks, such as assemblers, laborers in manufacturing and construction, and plant operators, have a higher risk of being automated. On the flip side, occupations that require more creativity, such as corporate executives, health professionals, and teachers, are probably less likely to be replaced by machines. A 2020 World Economic Forum report highlighted that the pandemic has accelerated automation by creating a double disruption scenario for workers. Almost half of businesses surveyed by the World Economic Forum indicated they are likely to reduce their workforce by outsourcing and integrating technology. However, it is not all doom and gloom. The continuous advent of new technology is not a new phenomenon. As with the first three industrial revolutions, technology is likely to bring long-term benefits to our society and economy. Indeed, the steam engine, electricity, and internet created more jobs than it replaced in the long run. A 2018 PwC report estimated that automation from AI and robotics are likely to contribute up to USD 15 trillion to the global GDP in 2030. That being said, we need to invest heavily in preparing our workforce today through the promotion of universal digital literacy. The second major shift is the changing demographics that are leading changes in societal values and consumer behavior. Our population is shifting from baby boomers to millennials and zoomers. Both Gens Y and Z are accelerating the digital way of life. These digital natives are more likely to shop online, stream content, and use digital payment methods. Young people these days are more likely to support brands and organizations that are championing social and environmental causes. There is a generational shift from the boomers to the zoomers. Let me give an example to illustrate this demographic shift. The media industry now is catering to the changing taste of digital natives, with groups such as BTS and 88 Rising having global reach. It was estimated the Korean group such as BTS contributed USD 4.65 billion to South Korea's GDP in 2018. In 2017, 1 in 13 tourists in South Korea visited the country because of BTS. The BTS effect has clearly created thousands of new jobs while strengthening the country's global soft power. The question for Malaysia is whether our own digital natives have what it takes to be creative enough to enable the country to enjoy similar benefits. Now, the third major shift is global economic and political power from the West to Asia. The US-led international order has experienced tremendous stress with various challenges from the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, coupled with the global financial crisis in the late 2000s. The decline or lack of Western global leadership was accompanied with the rise of China as the second largest economy and a strong proponent of multilateralism. Unlike the Cold War, when the US and the Soviet Union competed for military power, this century will see America and China compete for technological supremacy, especially in semiconductors, AI, and building 5G connectivity. It is no exaggeration when author Parag Khanna argued in his 2019 book that the future is Asian. There are many implications of the power shift from the US to China in the Asian region. Countries in ASEAN would often look to China for economic cooperation. Indeed, China has been most proactive in developing its dialogue partnership with ASEAN. Evidently, China has spent over USD 200 billion on infrastructure development, benefiting mainly Asian countries from Pakistan to Malaysia. China has been ASEAN's largest trading partner for more than 10 years. On the other hand, Asian countries look to the US on upholding a rules-based regional order, albeit not without cynicism. America's policy of upholding free and open Indo-Pacific ensures that all countries play by the same rules. The intensifying strategic rivalry between the US and China may push Asian countries to choose sides, as mentioned by Dato Seri just now. However, ultimately, Asia needs both countries as they play differing but important roles in developing the region as the next engine of economic growth. Now, to sum up these three major megatrends or shifts, the advent of the fourth industrial revolution will shift manual labor jobs to automations. Demographic changes will shift from baby boomers to millennials and zoomers, and the center of economic and political power will shift from the West to Asia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we think of the megatrends, we must be cognizant of an underrated but crucial concept, risk. Simply put, risk is the possibility of something bad happening. It involves uncertainty, and it can come from anywhere and in any form. Think about accidents, natural disasters, conflict, credit risks, and legal liabilities. Leaders in their respective fields need to identify, assess, and manage risks. True leadership means the ability to take tough decisions, to respond to the challenges and risks faced by turning them into opportunities. Against the backdrop of the three major shifts in Asia, I wish to narrow down to the most urgent and pressing challenge, climate change. As we all know, man-made activities have been relentlessly pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, trapping heat in it and making Earth warmer. World temperatures would rise between 0.3 and 4.8 degrees Celsius, leading to sea level rise between 0.26 and 0.98 meters, according to the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. The consequences will be catastrophic. Emergence of new diseases, more extreme weather patterns, food shortages, forced migration, and more conflicts. Even in where we are in Kuala Lumpur, many would have thought we were insulated from the worst effects of the climate crisis. That, of course, quickly changed when we were rudely awakened with the serious floods in December 2021. Now, our hope lies in collective leadership. Leadership is needed now more than ever in these uncertain times. According to the UN, most countries have announced a peak carbon target by 2030, while 130 countries have pledged net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Businesses, big and small, are moving beyond corporate social responsibility to being compliant with environmental, social, and governance standards, either by choice or by regulation. In Southeast Asia, greater awareness of climate change and sustainability has led to more emphasis on ESG. In November 2021, ASEAN released its taxonomy for sustainable finance to provide a common language for member countries. In Asia, ESG represents many opportunities: green financing to enhance the E, alternative financing to complement the S, and better G collaboration to facilitate sustainable recovery. Another aspect to keep at the back of our minds is black swan events. Black swan events, of course, by definition, are rare and extremely hard to predict. I'm reminded by how the late US Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, approached this complex matter. In the context of strategic planning and risk management, he lays out three categories: known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. Known knowns are things that we know, and known unknowns are things that we don't know. What is interesting is unknown unknown, things that we don't know, we don't know. That unknown unknown recently manifested in the COVID-19 pandemic, although many would argue that such pandemic has been predicted before in American movies. But nobody could have predicted the scale of this once-in-a-century event. It has upended the way we live, work, and play, for better or for worse. Now, much has been written and spoken about the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact. I will not repeat the points, which I believe will be discussed at length during the panels. What is clear is that the business-as-usual approach is no longer sustainable. Governments and businesses alike must be ready to face another black swan event. We cannot afford to be caught off guard as we were in 2020. Even the ongoing conflict in Ukraine is a reminder of how fragile our global economy is, and by extension, the global value chains. It is no longer an exaggeration to say that when one country sneezes now, the world can catch a cold. In this regard, the role of leadership becomes more important. Leaders in both the public and private sector today need to be visionary and strategic. They need to be able to comprehend and anticipate major shifts and global trends to better prepare their countries and companies in a volatile world. But in meeting the expected demands of the people, they also need to have high moral ethics and integrity, and to give a high priority to complying to good governance. National reputational damage will be the end result, with all the attendant consequences if these are simply ignored. It is undeniable that we are living in a relatively more peaceful of times in the context of our overall history. This point was made by Steven Pinker in his book, The Better Angels of Our Nature, when he argued that violence in the world has somewhat declined, both in the short and long term. However, the risk of conflict is ever present in the 21st century. It also doesn't mean that there are no conflicts in this day and age. Indeed, conflicts and tensions in the South China Sea, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Yemen, and even Iran provide stark reminders of how fragile peace is. For member states of ASEAN, it is crucial to maintain and preserve ASEAN's centrality in line with the ASEAN Charter, to avoid taking unilateral decisions independent of ASEAN and at the expense of ASEAN unity, and to reinvigorate their commitment to upholding the long-standing zone of peace, freedom, and Neutrality Declaration, ZOFPAN, in the region. And for the South China Sea in particular, an early conclusion of the long-standing code of conduct between ASEAN and China would bring a greater measure of peace and stability to the region, long desired by the parties concerned. The role of global governance is important to facilitate cooperation and resolve long-standing disputes. This entails creating, monitoring, and enforcing rules and norms for all countries. Now, the UN was established in the aftermath of the World War II for this purpose and to maintain the international peace and security. However, it needs to be fully functional in bringing about a just and fair system for all member states. Every member is responsible to uphold the international order and promote multilateralism to ensure disputes and conflicts are resolved peacefully. Within countries, of course, good governance is also a prerequisite for success and to prevent countries from becoming failed states. Indeed, good governance should be well instituted and practiced to provide the necessary checks and balances whilst preserving the principle of accountability, trust, and transparency within the country concerned. In this regard, Malaysia needs to be transformative by undertaking the necessary reforms so as to be successful in an ever-competitive world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would be remiss if I did not say a few words about my home state of Penang. Now, Penang plays an important role in Asia as an economic, cultural, and logistical hub. Even though we are a geographically tiny state with a small population of only 1.8 million people, Penang clearly punches above our weight. Penang's economy accounts for 6.85% of Malaysia's GDP in 2020, which makes us the sixth biggest economic contributor. Penang has been able to adapt to the changing times as its economy has transformed from an entrepot in the 19th century into a manufacturing hub in the 21st century. Penang has been dubbed as the Silicon Valley of the East, and for good reasons. The state boasts a strong and vibrant electrical and electronics ecosystem. Interestingly, Penang's achievement in E&E can be traced back to the 1970s when companies from the original Silicon Valley, such as Intel, AMD, and Hewlett-Packard, invested and operated in Bayan Lepas in Penang. These multinational corporations created many opportunities for foreign and local companies and transferred the spirit of innovation to the state. These 8 major MNCs, dubbed as the 8 Samurai, have not only stayed in Penang throughout the decades, but expanded their operations. The establishment of Bayan Lepas Free Industrial Zone as the first free trade zone in Penang was a game changer for Penang as a regional E&E hub. I'm proud to say that Penang commanded about 5% share of the global semiconductor exports in 2019. And today, we are home to more than 350 MNCs and over 4,000 small and medium enterprises. In 2020, Penang contributed close to 30% of Malaysia's total trade, which is second only to Selangor, a major state. We also contributed close to 70% of Malaysia's exports of electronic integrated circuits and 44% of the nation's other E&E products. Despite the pandemic and the many lockdowns, Penang exports actually grew by 7% year on year. And now this is testament to visionary leadership that accounted for the megatrends at the time and which took decisive actions accordingly. Now, Penang today has some of Malaysia's most creative and innovative entrepreneurs. There are many major businesses that started off as startups in the state, such as JobStreet, PictoChart, and Exabytes. There isn't much data on this yet, but I'm confident that Penang has among the highest startup per capita in Malaysia. We are moving in the right direction with the state government providing seed funding and support for startups in various sectors such as Internet of Things, advanced manufacturing, education, technology, clean tech, and health tech. I dare say that the next unicorn startups will come to Penang. The state has the right ingredients to create the next unicorn, be it the next Grab, Qasem, or Lazada. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me say that we are now seeing the world rapidly reopening following 2 disruptive years brought about by the pandemic. We are expected to live with COVID-19 as an endemic. I'm cautiously optimistic that the region will bounce back better and stronger. According to the OECD's Economic Outlook for Asia in 2022, Asian economies are expected to grow by 5.8%. Of course, there are some short-term risks, future waves of COVID-19, rising inflation, and multiple disruptions affecting supply chain, education, and incomes. And political instability can also derail economic recovery. While we are fortunate to live in a very resilient region that has proven itself to be able to meet difficult challenges, we must, however, continue to be vigilant and to be able to adapt when necessary. On that note of cautious optimism, I look forward to hearing the ideas and inputs from the panels. My appreciation again to the main organizer, KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific, and co-organizers for inviting me to deliver this address. I wish all participants a fruitful summit. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.